Hello and welcome to all of our viewers joining us for this panel today. My name is Meghan Bodette. I'm the Director of Research at the Kurdish Peace Institute, and I'll be moderating our discussion. I want to thank you all for joining and just reiterate that we look forward to informing you about the current situation in Northeast Syria and answering all of your questions. Since the fall of the Assad regime earlier this week, there have been many ongoing developments in Northern Syria and in the country as a whole. And as we know, in all situations of conflict, these developments have specific and disproportionate impacts on women. People are discussing what the future of the country will look like, and one major question is, given the rule of Islamist groups like HTS in Damascus, what future women in Syria will have. Meanwhile, in the northeast of the country, Turkey-backed Syrian National Army militias, which have been documented by the United Nations and international human rights organizations as having committed horrific atrocities against women, particularly Kurdish, Yazidi, and other non-Muslim women. These militias are expanding their territories of control. They've taken over Manbij, and in the past days, they have launched attacks on Kobani. Right now, there's a very fragile ceasefire in place, but reports from the ground suggest that Turkey and Turkey-backed groups continue to test the boundaries of these ceasefires. We know that if Northeast Syria is not included in a political solution, not only will the rights of the Kurdish people, the Yazidi, Syriac, Assyrian people, other minorities living in the Northeast be completely off the table, given the politics of the opposition groups that have now taken power, but women's rights will also be completely off the table. We know how these groups govern, we know the risks that they pose, and only Northeast Syria has represented women at all levels of political and security decision-making. Women now are struggling not only for their inclusion in terms of the communities that they come from, but for their inclusion as women. So today we'll be hearing from three incredible women leaders from North and East Syria who have spent the past 12 years advancing not only the rights of their Kurdish community and of all communities in Syria, but also the rights of women of all different backgrounds. So I'm proud to introduce Women's Defense Unit's YPJ Commander-in-Chief Rohilat Afrin, PYD Executive Council Member Foza Yusuf, and Kongreya Star Coordination Member Shiraz Hemo. We'll hear from all three of these incredible women leaders today, and then the panel will be open for your questions. Thank you once again. In place of Shiraz Hemo, Jiyan Hisen will be our speaker from Kongra Star. Our first speaker is an incredible longtime leader in both the struggle for Kurdish rights in Syria and the women's movement for the freedom of all women in that country, PYD Executive Council Member Foza Yusuf. Foza, thank you for joining us today.
Good evening for Meghan and for all the participants listening to us. Firstly, I want to say, now we are here speaking, but now our fighters are fighting a very difficult, tough war on the Tishrin Dam. Because the mercenaries of the Turkish state launched a big attack on the Tishrin Dam, and they want to seize it. Because this dam, in order to use it against the people of North and East Syria, and in this way, basically they want that the people of this region have their water and electricity taken from them. We can say this is a crime against humanity. It's been 2 days. Very fierce attacks have come. There's a very, very big fight ongoing. And the Turkish state, with its weapons, with its warplanes, all its tanks and bombs are being used to attack, so that the people of North and East Syria be cut from their electricity and water. Also, the Turkish state is turning towards Kobani. It's looking to Kobani. Kobani, which is a symbol of the fight against ISIS. It's a symbol of resistance. And the Turkish state wants to occupy Kobani also. Now there is a very difficult war occurring. We have martyrs, we have injured people, but also there is a huge heroism going on right now. I want to talk about the recent situation a little bit. As is known, it's been several days. In Syria as a whole, there have been big changes occurring. You can say it's been like a political and military earthquake happening in Syria. The Assad government fell. Undoubtedly, this is something good that Assad fell, because he was very oppressive on us and on the whole people of Syria. It was a dictatorial ruler, and he did not accept the identities of the region. He did not accept the Kurdish identity. Our language was not accepted. Our political identity was not accepted. For this reason, one can say that it's been long years we've been oppressed by him. But we cannot say a revolution has occurred for us, because those forces that came, they are extremist forces. They do not accept freedom for women. They do not accept diversity in the region. With religious fundamentalism, with sexism, with racism, it's a big danger. And after they came into Shehba, they beheaded women. They kidnapped women. They sold women. And most recently, when they came into Manbij, they kidnapped women. And all people who are desirous of freedom, all people who are democratic, all people who are against racism, they tortured these people. They killed them. For this reason, we can say there is a lot of murder happening in Syria right now. And the world is silent against this. The world is just saying it's a revolution. And we want to say that this is anti-revolutionary. Today, against our revolution, there is big attacks being organized. And primarily, both as the people of the region who are against this, who are facing this big genocide, it's both the people of the region and also women specifically. We can say that the biggest victims of this war are women. Hundreds of thousands of people are now displaced. In this last week in North and East Syria, 100,000 people, displaced people, came to our region, and it's continuing because the attack on Manbij. It's clear there's going to be refugees, displaced people from there too, and with Shehba also. And also from other parts of Syria, people are coming to our region because the people there cannot accept this oppression. They cannot stay there. Because they are facing barbarous actions, monstrous actions there. They saw how women were beheaded. And they see here how women, there's a monstrous kind of violence occurring against women. And this is with the approval of the regional forces and international forces, primarily Turkey, because it's with the hands of Turkey that today there's a genocide occurring against women in Syria. In Damascus, knowledgeable women, women who are learned, who are well-read women, or women who have a mentality of freedom and who are advancing this, Or, for example, people who could really be vanguard in society, many of these have been killed in these last days in Damascus. One can say, just like how ISIS in 2014 in Shengal carried out a massacre, today these extremist forces connected to Turkey are doing the same thing. However, ISIS, it didn't have the kind of support that now we see these forces have today. Today, NATO forces have put all their eyes on this situation. They're looking at it. They are not intervening. There is killing of people, killing of women in every way, and they are legitimizing it. It's a big danger. If truly, as democratic forces, as forces who are desirous of freedom, if we don't resist, if we don't struggle, if we don't fight, there will be thousands of massacres on us, not just like in Shengal. There will be like 10 Shengals occurring here. There have been assaults on women. Crimes like this are being done. And as I said, if we don't prevent this, if we don't resist against this, just like what happened in Shengal in 2014 for the Shengal women, that massacre, the same thing today will repeat. The women of Manbij, women who were working in the council, women who were working with the autonomous administration, those mercenaries, just like ISIS kidnapped women, it's the mercenaries of the Turkish state doing the same thing in Manbij now. There are many videos of this. There's many voice recordings, calls of these women who are shouting out to be saved. We can't reach these women. We cannot reach them right now. There's a big distance between us and them geographically. And today in Tartus, in Latkia, the Alawi peoples from the Alawi sect, they are facing murder daily. And all the things that are being done are met with a big silence from the international forces, primarily the UN, also the forces of the international coalition and the European Union. All forces there see this situation from up close, but no one is raising their voice. And none of them are taking a stance against it. Therefore, I see it as very important that we, as democratic forces in the world, as forces who are desirous of freedom, who are for the freedom of women and for the rights of people working, everyone who's thinking is in this line need to support the resistance that we are making now as YPG. We need support from the corners of the world. It's been several days today. A very harsh war has been occurring. We have many martyrs and many fighters injured. And the Turkish state, with its bombs, with its tanks, with its planes, are supporting it. The Turkish state, even in a direct way, is inside this war. And Turkey says to the public, it's not directly in this war, but it's a lie. This plan is Erdogan's plan. It's his plan from 2014, when he failed due to the resistance in Kobani. Erdogan today wants to occupy Kobani through these extremist mercenary groups. We see a new ISIS being organized by the Turkish state. Finally, I say this. Our call for all people who are wanting freedom, for all ecologist people. Today, the Tishrin Dam is facing a big danger. If there is no interference with the situation of the Tishrin Dam, 10 villages may be submerged if the dam is breaking. And for people who are democratic people, people who protect human rights, today, the rights of the Kurdish people in Manbij are being violated in Shahba. Kurdish people are being killed, they are being beheaded. Arab people who are desirous of freedom, they are being tortured, they are being murdered. Alawi people, Alawite people in Latakia and in Tartus are being killed, are being murdered. In every way, one can say that racism, that religious fundamentalism and sexism they are trying to make them dominant over this region. And this is not just a danger for us, it's a danger for the whole world. Because Erdogan wants, through these mercenaries, to organize them everywhere and threaten everyone. Just like in 2014, the threat of Daesh, the threat of ISIS on Syria and Iraq occurred, but was not limited to Syria and Iraq. It threatened the whole world. Today, the extremist movements that Erdogan is supporting are a danger for people's security and women's security and world security. So our call for everyone is that everyone put their hands together and in the face of this fascism, in the face of these extremist forces, in the face of this dirty plan that the Turkish state is the leader of, that everyone with one stance, with one voice, stands up together, so that together we are able to, that we can stop this monstrous, awful wave. This is what I say.
Thank you very much for your evaluation of the situation. That was Foza Yusuf, member of the Executive Council of the Democratic Union Party. That point that these groups that have started with threatening women, Kurds, religious minorities in Syria won't only continue to threaten these groups in Syria is very important. We know that extremists and authoritarians all over the world start by targeting women, ethnic minorities, and religious minorities, but they never end there. They often end by becoming a threat for the rest of us. So watching what Kurds are saying is a threat, what Yazidis are saying is a threat, what women are saying is a threat is very important. Now, for our next speaker, we'll hear from one of the leaders of the fight against ISIS. Rohilat Afrin is the commander-in-chief of the Women's Defense Units, or YPJ, the autonomous all-women's armed force that, as part of the Syrian Democratic Forces, or the SDF, played an integral role in defeating ISIS, and also set an example that women can lead in all fields for Northeast Syria and beyond. Please begin. Thank you, Rohilat.
So I, firstly, to you, the resistance of the forces who are now at the Tishrin Dam fighting a very tough war. All the listeners, I greet you. As my friend Foza talked about, in the period in which we are living, it's got to this point that it's a principle of war that will break it or make it is here. As the forces of the Syrian Democratic Forces and YPG and YPJ, just like in Kobani and in all the offensives that were waged in North and East Syria. Another time with the spirit of taking revenge, because our people, women, all peoples are living in North and East Syria these 13 years have been organizing a revolution so that everyone in our region can live in safety, so that everyone in our region can truly think freely and live freely. On this basis, the world all knows that for 10 days we have been fighting a very serious war, from Shehba to Aleppo to Manbij. Now, on the Tishrin Dam, there is an unparalleled resistance and heroism occurring. The forces of the Turkish state, who truly are jihadist forces, who are carrying out a looting war, a war of occupation, and who want to completely break the will of women. These forces are launching interventions on Syria. The Turkish state was wanting, with the interventions in Syria, to use it so that all the achievements and values we have reached here at the highest level, that we have here women who are with their own culture, with their own language, who are proving their history again against oppressive forces, against forces that want to eliminate, to wipe out. Or like the war in Kobani when it was attacked by ISIS, and with the stamps of YPG and all the freedom fighters who were fighting in this war. And really, this was a threat also to all women in the world at this time. In order for all women to be able to live free, these fighters gave a response then. And if we look at today's day, if we look in Shehpa to Manbij to the Tishrin Dam, our fighters, our commanders, who are leading this process, this period, this war, so that there is not another episode of looting and violation and occupation, so that the enemy, particularly approaches that of enmity, particularly the Turkish state, which wants to destroy the achievements made in North and East Syria that was made with the sacrifice of thousands of martyrs. As the forces of YPG at the highest level, we are very determined. We are with a strong will that the Turkish state and its mercenaries, or whoever, will not be able to break our will. It's a war of dignity, a war of existence, a war of resistance that's being waged. And this means that the Turkish state is making itself the enemy of women. Many of our friends who were taken prisoner by them, for example, in Aleppo, Shehba, and Manbij, if we look at all these and many other women who captured by we have the mercenaries openly saying we will sell these women or things like this. The fighters who are fighting these mercenaries show that they expose the fact that these mercenaries are carrying out murderous acts at a very high level. The Turkish state and the mercenaries affiliated to it, maybe we are right now here talking, but just a few kilometers away there is a massive fight being waged, a big struggle. And many of our fighters and our commanders of YPG, and the SDF are there, in order that the people not be massacred again, that women don't be massacred another time. In order that this don't happen, there is an unparalleled resistance occurring right now. And if we look at today's reality, we don't just see Turkey as carrying out an interference. The tactics and politics of the Turkish state are ones of occupation. All the people living in North and East Syria, with a leadership that wants that together everyone can be represented. Turkey is working as hard as it can to eliminate this, to stop this, to wipe this out. At the same time, those forces who are living on this land, for example, the coalition or other forces who are present on the land of Syria and who see the reality of these attacks with their own eyes, or all the human rights organizations, the European states, they need to, in the face of these attacks, take a stance with one voice. But unfortunately, the forces present on this land, or the ones outside too, everyone is silent in the face of these attacks. They are blind, deaf, and mute. And the will and resistance coming out right now is not just for Kurds or for the women here or for the people of this land. No, it's much broader than that. The women's revolution of 13 years and the achievements that have been made in North and East Syria in this time, we are protecting these. It's a big threat right now to the women's revolution. YPG plays a role for all women in the world, representing their will, that all women can, with their language and culture and identity, live in every moment in life. The actions of YPG impact all women in life, all over the world. And to finish, I want to say this. From all sides of the world, if YPG proved that if there's a place that there's no defense, there's no self-organization, then you cannot have a life in which you are expressing your own identity. And we call on all women's organizations, all people who are working in human rights organizations, we call on them to, in the face of the attacks being carried out right now and the inhuman acts that are being done right now, we call on all these organizations to take a stance, to raise their voice. And all the forces who are involved in the running of this world, who are closing their eyes against these attacks, we need them all with one voice to take a stance against the things going on right now. These attacks are not just on a part of our land right now. This danger is for all women. These forces want to leave women without force and without organization.
Thank you very much to YPJ Commander Rohilat Afrin. Again, we see the importance of women being able to defend themselves and being able to defend their communities from these kinds of extremist groups and exclusive, nation statist groups that try to keep women and Kurdish communities out of politics in places like Syria. So for our third and final speaker, we're going to hear from Jiyan Hisen from the coordination of Kongra Star, the main organization of the civilian women's movement in Northeast Syria that's been organizing to really actualize these legal and social changes for women. Jiyan Hisen, endama koordinasyonu Kongra Star, keremke.
Hello. From the field of the women's revolution in North and East Syria, I am from Kongra Star. The resistance of our fighters who are fighting right now, this is a historical resistance. They are writing history right now. And the resistance of our people right now in all fields, particularly our displaced people, those who have been displaced for the second time, our people in Afrin, who are right now in North and East Syria. We salute their resistance and the resistance of all our people who in their communes and everywhere are protecting their land. So I want to talk about the revolution of Rojava that's been known as the Women's Revolution, and how women in Rojava and in North and East Syria, all components, can say Kurdish women have been the vanguards of this revolution at first, but now we see all other peoples are slowly joining this revolution and have made big achievements. All peoples of North and East Syria. There's been many women's organizations and movements built. Women have strengthened themselves educationally with regards to defense. We see women in the political field, in military field, diplomacy field. They are representatives. They are in the social work, economic work, in all fields of life. There has been massive progress for women in North and East Syria, and this achievement is not just for the women of North and East Syria. This achievement is for Syrian women overall, is for Middle East women, and is for the women of the world. The resistance that's being waged here right now, the achievements that have been achieved, is with the blood of our martyrs. We've given thousands of martyrs in order to get these achievements, and we see that the things that have occurred from 27th of November until now, it's been barbarous attacks on our region. Firstly, it began in Aleppo, then it moved on to other regions of Syria. We saw violent attacks on Shehba that was carried out, as everyone knows. In 2018, the people of Afrin, who were living in Afrin, a Kurdish city, although it did have other peoples inside it, but it was mostly known as a Kurdish city. There was a resistance of 58 days there, but nonetheless, we saw that the Turkish state and the mercenaries connected to it used all methods of war, like drones, on that region to get the people out of that region, to carry out a massacre on those people, and those people became displaced. They went to Tel Rifat, to Shehba, and in the camps they experienced very difficult times. Particularly women and children. But they did not give up their resistance. They said, we will organize ourselves in Shehba so we can be close to Afrin, and they always wanted that they return to Afrin. That was their dream. But when Hayat Tahrir al-Sham, Jabhat al-Nusra, when they attacked Aleppo, then there was also the attack on Shehba. And so in order that the people not face another massacre, these people, these grandmothers and grandfathers and women, they were saved from those mercenaries by leaving Shehba. Maybe there are some people who stayed in Shehba and they are facing a very difficult situation, and we are making calls to rights organizations that we can go save those people, because the mercenaries are just there looting and violating and killing and carrying out violent acts such as rape on women. The people with the autonomous administration of North and East Syria, the people were received. The people of Shehba were received by the other people in North and East Syria when they were displaced. They were welcomed. They were their essential needs were met. They were found a place to live. But there is such a difficult war, a tough war being waged against us right now. And particularly in these last 3 days, the attack that's occurring on Minbij. There has been a big massacre there. In Ain Issa, 12 people from one family were killed in Ain Issa, mostly women and children. Also, there was 2 children killed in an attack on Kobani. Across all of North and East Syria, the attacks of the occupying Turkish state and the mercenaries connected to it are just becoming more intense, with the aim that the achievements for women that were made in North and East Syria, they want to eliminate these achievements, the progress that was made for all women. And so we see, most recently in Minbij, when there was this big resistance, 3 members of the women's union Zenobia were killed. This women's union, Zenobia, is one of the achievements of this revolution for the Arab women and other women. That women have organized themselves under the name of Zenobia, and we saw that these 3 women who were like leaders in Minbij were barbarically murdered. They were martyred. And I offer condolences to their family. We see how when the mercenaries attack, first they attack women. They want that the role of women, the freedom of women to be stopped. And every time an event like this occurs, actually we see the union of women and the stance of women against it is strong. As women renew their promise to the martyrs to defend themselves, to protect their achievements, to always be resisting, to always be fighting against this. But at the same time, as the two other friends talked about, it's been 10 days, there has been a huge resistance being waged in North and East Syria. The people are all in the field. The people are all taking to the streets. The attacks on North and East Syria right now, their aim is that the achievements of women be eliminated. They don't want that women play a role, in society. There are many attacks being made right now, and when we talk about these attacks, we see that if it was, maybe it's in the name of Hayat Tahrir al-Sham, Jabhat al-Nusra, or other mercenaries. But their methods are the same as ISIS. Just like ISIS in Shengal carried out a massacre, we see the same method now. The regions that have come under the occupation of them see women on the daily facing violence and murder. Women who were kidnapped. There was today news saying that HTS say that women must not take any place in justice work. There's a decision made like this, saying, no, women cannot play any role in justice, in the field of justice. We do not accept this. Women must just stay in the house. This is a threat to the women's revolution. But we say that the struggle and resistance of women is ongoing, it continues. And the union of all components of North and East Syria continues, but it's insufficient. Just like in 2014, we saw many people stood up for the revolution of Rojava when there was the resistance in Kobani. Now, again, there is the need that all international institutions, intellectuals, politicians, people who fight for freedom and democracy and equality, these people all need to support Rojava, to support North and East Syria, so that we can protect these achievements, because these achievements are not only for Syria, they are not only for North and East Syria, they are for all women. So this is our call. Our call is to stand up for the democratic nation project, to stand up for the achievements of the women's revolution, the project of the Brotherhood of Peoples that we have been carrying out for 13 years in North and East Syria. 13 years we've been making a revolution here. We've always called that we can solve the Syrian crisis, but the Assad regime never accepted this, did not accept to make dialogue with us, to meet with us, to sit and discuss. And women were not accepted. The diversity of peoples was not accepted. Assad was not accepting the rights of all the people here. And at the end, he fell. What was successful was the unity of the people. So we make a call. We say, stand up for this project, protect the achievements. Wherever you are, on the Middle East, in the world, and particularly those organizations who are concerning themselves with women's rights, with human rights, to stand up for the achievements of our women's revolution, because they are achievements for all women, so that we can also build women's confederalism and prevent murder and femicide.
Gelek spas Jiyan Hisen, Coordination Kongra Star. Thank you very much, Jiyan Hisen from the Kongra Star Coordination. Now, for the final portion of our panel, we know that many of you representing the media, academic institutions, civil society organizations, and more have questions for our brilliant speakers. And we know that our speakers are very busy in this emergency situation. So this is an incredible opportunity to hear directly from them on issues of your concern. If you would like to ask a question, please send it in the chat. We will read it and your question will be answered by the speaker. All right, I see we have one question. Sean McCracken asks, how can universities help in particular? To whoever would like to answer that.
Everyone can help, particularly North and East Syria also has its own university. But due to the attacks that are occurring right now, the studying and the students are all very afraid. So everyone needs to support North and East Syria because the Democratic Nation project, so that everyone with their own existence, culture and language can live and work. And the university here is making a lot of relations with other universities, but needs more support so that students can continue their studies. There needs to be support from everyone who's following us right now. Support our universities, our students. Particularly, there's a lot of projects in recent years that our students wanted to carry out, but because there's been the pressure of a lot of attacks on them, there is a need for more support for the students. And so that we can have everyone continuing their study with their own language. For university students, I want to say something. This is our call to the general public also. The situation occurring now in North and East Syria, academics can put it on the agenda. This is something important. People who are academics, because there's really intense attacks on knowledge also, on science. 100 schools have been closed because of the displaced people that have been housed in schools because there's no other room for them. And there's hundreds of thousands of children who are now without education as a result of the attacks of the Turkish state, and also universities can get our voice out to the world through making actions. They can take a stance. They can shed light on the situation to the general public. So it's really important that both students and academics raise our voices, enhance our voices, and express the situation that is today occurring here. They can become the voice of the resistance that is occurring here. They can also help amplify the voices here. Right now, students can't study at their schools here.
Tamam Sfas. Thank you very much. For the next question, we have many in here. You guys are doing great. Oh. So I see a question from Jyothi Raj. What sort of global support needs to be mobilized?
So we have a big problem right now that particularly so many forces are silent against the murder that is happening here. And in the international field, this situation that's happening here needs to be accurately reflected. Concerning this also, in media, the actions of these extremist forces are not being exposed, are not being published. There is a big silence in the face of this. The Turkish state is carrying out crimes against humanity. Thousands, hundreds of thousands of people, the Turkish state wants to cut from water, wants to reoccupy regions. And in international law, it's a big crime. This is being carried out on our geography. The politics of the Turkish state, it's really important that there be a stance taken against it, a political stance taken against it, and also against the extremist forces. There needs to be unity and common organization built up. This is really important. Taking a stance in every way and taking a common stance, a shared stance, because up until now we see that it's been silent. And the genocide that is being carried out, no one is talking about it. No one is stopping it. So it's really important that in particular the Turkish government, that there be work, take it to court, to prosecute it. Because the Turkish state is carrying out big crimes against our people here and against women. According to the international principles and standards, the Turkey should not be doing what it's doing. Very heavy crime it's carrying out. These 13 days that have passed by, murder of women, murder of children, looting, stealing, from all sides. There's been displacement. Children are cut from their rights. Women are taken away from their identity. And on the geography of North and East Syria, these murders, the attacks that are being carried out, there is a silence in the face of this, and this makes us doubt. Firstly, as also the other friends said, the Turkish state is carrying out crimes against humanity. And if in the face of these crimes, there's not one stance and one voice coming out against it, it makes the Turkish state take courage. The silence gives courage to the Turkish state. So our approach, our stance needs to be this. On this basis, we need help in this way. Help just, for example, to give some food or water or logistical things is not enough. If the geography is being changed, if your land is being looted, if there is massive displacement on your land, if women representing themselves are being eliminated, we need all international institutions to be attentive to this and to take a stance. I said many times, the Turkish state is murdering people and women. These crimes that are being done, there needs to be, the Turkish state needs to be held accountable, firstly in an international court. Erdogan himself and all those supporting him carry out these massacres. There needs to be a stance taken against them, a stance shown against them. This is our call. That everyone, all people who hear the sounds of humanity, of humans from here, who look at our land and who see the reality, the truth of what is happening here.
Okay. For the next question, we can see that there are many journalists going to Syria at the moment. Do you see many planning to visit the autonomous administration at the moment, or are they all in other areas of Syria? I'm not a speaker, but I'll comment on this as someone who's spent a great deal of time out there. I highly recommend for journalists on this call, to my knowledge, the border is open, though you would have to check with the latest updates on that. It is worth going. This is a part of the story that's being left out, and the best way to report it is on the ground yourself. So I highly recommend going over there. And if any of our speakers would like to comment on what they're seeing.
For journalists, up to now, the journalists who have come here, it's possible that make news, they are sharing news. But they're not focusing on this situation in a strong way. The humanitarian situation, the attacks in Turkey, the crimes that are being committed, they are not really focusing on this. There's actually also sexist approaches in the media that are predominant. Women's issues and the oppression of women and the murder of women that is being carried out, they're not being publicized in a good way. And these extremist forces are not being exposed for what they are. Just like the international forces close their eyes, the media also is not focusing on topics, on the needed topics. What are they focusing on instead? They're focusing on unimportant topics. It's like a form of special warfare. They are playing a role in special warfare. What do I mean by special warfare? They are making fear. Extremist forces, they are not exposing them, which means that these extremist forces make fear in people, which makes people think to flee. So the media, instead of actually exposing the extremist face of these forces, they are enabling them to carry out psychological warfare. It's a big danger. According to my opinion, it's needed that this media have a more freedom desiring stance, have a greater stance that is looking for equality and freedom. The methods they're using are actually oppressive methods and with a patriarchal view, a sexist view. They are writing their news, they are making this way. It's a problem that we can say exists in the media. This is not a free media. It's a media that serves the occupying and oppressive forces. I just want to say this. The things that Foza said, I agree. Journalists and media, when we speak of them, they need to show the truth, the reality of what is being lived in the area. But if we look, we see that in the face of the attacks being done and the resistance being done, we believe that if there is good following of it, if there is good analysis of it, if there is better approaches towards it, the reality of the attackers who are living here, who are on this land, see, to follow it well, this situation, to analyze it well, and to introduce it well to the general public. Often the language used is also the language male dominant. And I'm not just talking about North and East Syria. In many countries, that in which there is all form of occupation occurring. If these things are not seen well for what they are, then the capitalist system will always be successful, or is seen as always successful also. The violations that are occurring, the looting and occupation that's occurring needs to be seen, needs to be exposed and shown for what it is.
Christina asks, is there a possibility of reaching an agreement with Hayat Tahrir al-Sham, taking into account that they now head the new government? Are there contacts between the SDF and non-jihadist oppositions groups, perhaps with populations such as the Druze people or with the villages in the south of the Dara area? Thank you so much.
So up to now, our relations are when they came to
حالة
Aleppo
هناك حالة إنسانية دركتن وهروها الشهباية هناك حالة إنسانية
and
دركتن
in
ما
Shehta
بوان
also,
بريكا هزن كواليسيونا نافنتبي
we,
بوان تكلي
through the
خباية
coalition, we made a
ملت
relation with them
الشهباية الشهبا درخينن
so that we get the
سوري
people of Shehba out of
تكلي
Shehba.
تشيبو
So we made a
يعني
relation
وقتها
with them,
دوار
we made
سياسي
contact
تكلي
with
تشي
them
نبونا
via the coalition in order to get
تكلي
these
جو
people out.
تشيبونا
But
دوار
other than this, there have not been political
دولتانية
relations
يا
made so far.
سيبيلا
It's
تشيبوي
been contacts based on
جبر
the
كونها
security of
زماني
civilians, on
يعني
securing
رفشا
this.
سوري إيدي كتيب بن سروريا
And now we see that Syria has
ام
fallen
كارن
completely under these forces,
بوان بدون بستينن
forced to
جبر إيرو كرد
communicate with
لشامي
them.
هنا لحلبي
There
هنا
are Kurds in Aleppo, in
وام
Damascus.
نشارنكو جبو
We
ام ملتي خو
are
ببارزن
obliged to
ام ببان
protect our
هزار
people.
تكن نبا
Therefore, we
تركيا
must be in contact with
جبو
these forces.
بركاري بيج بهر أواهي يعني بنا دسلادار لشامي
They are the
جبو
oppressors in
ام بكوشين
Damascus
خويا
in
أفرن
every way.
بردوام
And for
بكن
us to
وام
continue
مافي
our
خو
freedom
ببارزن
struggle and protect
أمي
our rights,
في تكلي خو تكلي جو ام بيش بخيرن لسر
we
أساسي
will
ام
develop
مافي
a
خو
contact with them, but
بيش
on the
خوشا سوري
basis
دبي
that
بارزن
we want to
نها
protect
جبالي وان
our
كو
right to exist
مخاطب
in
تجار
Syria in
نبو
the future.
يعني بري ريجيم هبو
They need to
أو
address, we
هزن
need to
نظام
address
هبو
them. There's no one else we can
هزن
address. Before there
معارضة
was the
أوبوزيسيون
region,
نادر هبو
before there was the regime, there was the
بينها
Syrian opposition, and there
همیشا
was
تكتو
extremist forces. But
أو
now
أو
all
ماجي
have gone. It's
سوري
just us and them
أو
left in
ماجي
Syria.
يعني
Therefore,
أمنتشارنكو
for this
دوار
reason, we
بتونسي
are forced to
جبو أم
communicate
كارن
with them
ملتي خو بباريزن
so that we can
ج
protect our
خروجيا
people
وأم مافي خو
from
سوريا بباريزن
genocide and
جبر
so that we can guarantee our rights in the future in Syria.
البته يعني دوی پیواژوی کومه در باس کرن
In
دا
this period we are
ما
passing through right
وکه
now,
اولا مجی گوت
for our
تعامل
people,
در
as my
باس
friend
کرن
said, people are experiencing
يعني آلی
murder
دستک
right
چی
now. There was a
آلی
ceasefire. There was a
بناوین کاریا
ceasefire,
هزن کوalisyonê
and
çi
this was
bû
also
دوی معنی
made
دا جبو
via
gelê me
coalition
hemû jin
mediation.
bi rastî rast
And all
xeterê
our
wekî hene
people, our
û
women,
em
they are
bikare
facing
bin
a danger right now.
yani hem aliyê derbasکirina wan da bi taybet ji
And we want to
şehba û
overcome
berî ku
this.
çêbû ji bo
In
carekê
Shehba,
din
there was
berdewamekî
big
çêne bike
displacement, as
bi
we saw, and
rastî
we
ve
don't want
berdewamekî
again
hilweşandin heye
to
divê
have
manê da
episodes of murder
pêwîstî
like
hat
this.
dîtin ku têkilî çêbibin
So there is the need
heman
to have
demê
some
ji bo em bikaribin bi
contact with
rastî
them, some relationship with
Suriye
them.
da hem weke gel
And in
hem
Syria,
weke
both as a people
mafê ku di roja me îro da jî yê ku cîhan pê diaxive û 13
and
sal
in today's
destpêkirîn
day,
êrişa me
the
yê ku
13
dibin
years of
bûka
achievements of our
bikaribin
revolution
la
that's carrying
vê
on,
gelî hem
so
rast
that we can represent
bikin
these
hem jî
people,
pêşengiyekî rast bikin
so that we
pêwîstî heye
can
ku
lead
hêza ku
well.
niha li ser vê erdeyê
There's a
ku
necessity that we
dixwaze
communicate with
carekê
the
din
forces who are
Sûriye
on this
bimeşînin
land.
elbet li beramberî vê pêdivî hene ku em hem
It's
têkilî
a
darin em
necessity
jî di
that we
çerçeva
make
parastin
contacts
û
with them
jiyana gelê
in
me
the
û tevahî
framework
jinan
of
ji bo ku bi ev
protecting
levin
our
naşe
people
û
and
vê malê
women.
da dibin
In this light,
dibin
in this
lêrîn an
way,
jî dibin feraseta ku bikaribe xwe biparêze bi rastî
so
xwedê
that
xwe
these people
derkeve
can also
em divê
have
alî da
a
jî
mentality that
hilweşan
is
çêbibin.
protecting them. We are also making efforts for this.
Okay, I see our next question for Rohilat Afrin. How do you assess the role of Israel in all of this? I saw that they bombed Kamishlo airport after it was taken by the SDF. Do you think that Israel will be joining the Turkish efforts to crush the revolution? And that question is from James Stewart.
Yani êrişê ku li ser Bakur û Jdatê Sûriyê
The
hatine nişandin
attacks that have
elbet
been carried out on North and East Syria,
bi qasî ku çavkaniyên resmiyê ku me gudar
the
kirin
formal
û bi
source
taybet
we're listening
tehdîd û
to,
êrişê ku li ser baragehên rejimê
and
çêbûn
the
yê ku me şûbandin
the
û
attacks that were carried
êrişên
out
ku li
on
ser
the
cî wan
military
hatin
points of
çêkirin
the
yek jê
regime.
a dewleta Tirk bû.
Actually, one of those who carried them out was the Turkish state, actually. It was Turkey carrying out these attacks, or at least some of them.
Yani ji bo wê divê manê da em nikarin mübaşer vê bêjin ku
We
İsraîl
cannot
hatine gudar
directly
çünkü
say it was
hem
Israel,
êrişê ku çêbûn
The attacks that occurred
darbe ku gihashtin ve dere mita Türk be fermi girte
actually
serxwe ku ev êriş girtin serxwe ji bo wê
formally
di derheqê de
claimed
yani
by
hem
the Turkish intelligence
tiştê
service ME.
neşopandin û agahiyê me jî girtin û ji
They,
xwe
with their own
şertemeniya
media,
xwe de jî
formally claimed
bi
this
fermî
attack.
mîta Türk
They
de
said it
xwedî
was
didan
us who
ku
did
ev
it.
êriş
They said it was
destê wan
the
hatiye
Turkish
kirin.
intelligence service themselves claimed this attack.
Gelek spas ji bo bersivatê servê mijara giring. And now we have about 10 minutes left on our panel and many incredible questions, so we'll keep trying to get through them. So we have an anonymous question. What have been the consequences and impacts for women in the Rojava region with the rise of HTS and its growing influence in neighboring Syrian areas? Are there specific strategies adopted by the Kurdish movements to mitigate or resist these changes? And how do these strategies affect the policies of emancipation and women's rights in the region? Also, the hegemonic media often portrays the fall of Assad's regime as widely celebrated by the population, presenting it as a homogeneous reception by the civilian population. What are the reactions from the civilian population that you observe? Is there a difference in the reception of the fall of the regime and the rise of HTS between Rojava and other parts of Syria?
Yani ji bo jinan niha di dest pê kirî li Şamê
For
gelek
women,
jin tên kuştin.
in Damascus, many women are being killed.
Gelek jin jî ji wan
And
re
also, many
mudaxela
women,
cilêwan dikin.
there is like
Yani
interference in what clothes they are
eger
wearing.
wextê mere li ew ê binere
If you look at
Hayat
this,
Tahrir Şam
Hayat
li
Tahrir
fisinekî
al-Sham
İslamiye
is an Islamic
dixwaze ku
organization
şeriata İslamê
that wants to
bişîne.
govern with Sharia law.
Li gorî dîtina wan û li gor xwendina wan
And according to their
şeriata
reading
İslamî
of Sharia,
jin
according to their
endamజ్
interpretation of
merekar
Sharia law,
yani pêwîst e îtaat ji mêr re bike û pêwîst e jin
women
bi her awahî
in
yani
every way
serê xwe û em bêjin mezê
should
xwe
cover both
bigire
their,
yani
their heads
vê
and their
hevî
mind.
siyaset tê meşandin.
This is the
Her
kind of
wiha
politics
Kurdistanê
they
dwarê
wage,
aborî de dwarê
and women's rights
civakî û aborî de
economically, in the
dîsa
social
destpêkirina wan
field,
jî
in the
gelek
civilian field.
pirsgirêk wê çêbibin.
There will be many
Mafê
problems here.
jina di alê beşdarbûnê de
Women's
beşdarbûna
rights in
jinan,
terms of
beşdarbûna siyasî,
participation,
beşdarbûna
participation in
aborî,
life, participation in politics, in
beşdarbûna
economics,
biryarê wê
in decision making.
gelekî lawaz bibin.
All of this will become much
Heta
weaker
me re karibêje temanî
until
ve
you could
dîktatoriya
say
mêra. Niha
it will really
wezarê
become
ku heteşe çêkirine
complete male
Heya
oppression
Tahrir
there.
Şam
Hayat
hemû
Tahrir
mêr
al-Sham,
û
they are
hemû
all
jî
men.
mêrên yê ku
They are all men
zayên-perest in.
who have sexist thinking.
Bema jî em bi rastî veya wek xeteriyekî pir mezin li ser
We see this
reşa
as a
jin,
big danger on the
em
women's
xeteriyekî pir
revolution.
mezin li ser mafê jina dibînin.
It's a big danger also to the rights
Vê
of
bûna
women, to
li
women's
seviyê jin
rights. And undoubtedly, as a
dixwaze
women's
jinan
revolution,
pirsiyana nîqaş bikin.
it's needed that we discuss this threat.
Li Şehbayê serê jinan jê kirin.
In Shehba, women
Li
were
Şamê de
beheaded.
jinekî
In
gelek
Damascus,
jinekî alim hat kuştin.
a
Heta
chemist woman, a woman who was a
alim li
chemist,
Şamê do hatin kuştin.
was killed. Actually, two women.
Yani ji bo wan jinên azadîxwaz
For them, for
ev
Hayat
jin
Tahrir
gelekî
al-Sham,
tên
women
agahiyên
who
tên
are
kirin.
desirous of
Nêrînekî
freedom
dixin
must
ji
be
bo
executed, must be killed.
di aliyê mafê jina de. Ji em wekî tevgerên jinan
And so we, as a women's
pêwîst
movement,
e vê mijarê ev guhertina
we
guhatê
see it's
em pir baş bixwînin.
that we
Yani
really
rast
well
Beşar
understand
Esed
what is happening and the changes
em
happening
bêjin
right now.
pergala Bas
The Ba'ath
golêra bû
system
ev
and
baş e.
Assad's government
Lê
has
êgo
gone. This is
hatîye
good. But what's
tê
come in its
baştir yani.
place
Bi
is not
tevgê ku
any
bo mafê
better,
jinan
particularly
gelekî
for
tê
women's
heta hîn
rights.
xerabtir.
You can maybe say it's even
Ev ê jî
worse.
xeteriyekî pir mezin e ji bo şoreşa jinan.
And this is a big danger for the
Pêwîst e
women's
em wekî jin
revolution.
em vê
And
rewşa
as
de
women,
nîqaş bikin
it's needed that we
û em ji
discuss
bo
this
wê stratejiya xwe
situation
diyar bikin.
and that
Stratejiya
we
jî ew e ku
specify a
em
strategy
pewa
according
li
to
berî
it.
vê metirsiyana
How, in the
tekoşîna
face
xwe
of this
bibînin yek.
threat,
Ne
can
tenê
we
Bakurê
unify
Rojavayê
our
Sûrî her wiha
struggle? Not
li
just in
Şehbayê
North and
Sûrî.
East Syria,
Ji ber
in
ku
all
jinên
of
li Şehbayê
Syria.
Sûrî niha
Because women in
pirsiyekî
all of
mezin
Syria
derîn.
right now are
Jiyana wan
facing this threat. to their life, to their rights, to their desires and wishes. It's like Afghanistan, really, really. It's like a danger like Afghanistan on Syria. And now HTS is wanting to be removed from the terror list. It wants to be accepted by the people. So it's showing itself in a nice way. But its reality has not changed. And this threat remains. And for the topic of the celebrations or the happiness with Assad falling, of course, everyone does not have the same level of political understanding to understand the fine points. The falling of the Ba'ath regime. We can say that the people of North and East Syria were very afraid because the extremist forces actually previously have attacked, have fought, have waged an oppressive war against the people here a lot. There is this experience, this previous experience with Jabhat al-Nusra. As you know, before the name was Hayat Tahrir al-Sham, it was Jabhat al-Nusra, and Jabhat al-Nusra fought the Kurds in Jazeera, occupied Sarakaniya. So not everyone was happy with the arrival of Hayat Tahrir al-Sham. The people's happiness was for the fall of the Ba'ath regime, but it was not an happiness that this extremist force be governing Syria, particularly for the people of North and East Syria, for the Syriacs, the Yazidis, the Kurds, the Armenians. There's a big fear. We can say this. For Arabs who are democratic, who are wanting freedom, who are wanting democracy, there is also this fear. Yesterday, in Manbij, an Arab person who worked in the autonomous administration was tortured. And this was put out on social media with videos as well. Hayat Tahrir al-Sham is not the reason why people are happy or we're celebrating. It's because of the fall of the Ba'ath regime. I want just to say two things shortly. When the minister of the temporary government, provisional government, was announced, truly the first threat to women, if we look at it, is that all the people who were assigned positions were men. There was, with all the ministers who were announced in the temporary government, there was no women present at all. And this means that the voices of women wants to suffocate the voices of these women.
هم ji destpêkê de xwe bike û bi rastî di xizmeta pêşengtiya gelan da bimeşe wê elbet aliyê jin û rola jin jî derkeve pêş.
If this temporary government is really going to do a service to its people, of course it has to consider women. And the attacks of Jabhat al-Nusra that are occurring right now, they are fully, completely against the 13 years of women's revolution. We can say in every way and all sides it's against this. The women from Manbij, from Shehba, in these 10, 13 days that have passed by, the voices of women who are in these regions have been reaching us. Women saying we don't want to live under these forces who have arrived here, who have occupied here. This shows what they are doing to women there. There is a threat all over that the rights and the voices of women that will be able to defend themselves are being cut. This is why we are afraid.
Our last question I'll ask from Debbie Bookchin. US Secretary of State Antony Blinken is reportedly traveling to Turkey tomorrow. There have also been reports that the international coalition, from all indications on the ground, seems prepared to cede areas west of the Euphrates to the SNA. How do you react to this position if this is the case? Is there any update that you can share on what your commanders are hearing from the international coalition forces with respect to their position and willingness to intervene diplomatically with respect to Turkish militia attacks both west and east of the Euphrates?
يعني حتى نها هالوسطى كواليسيون نافنتوين
Up to now, the position of the international coalition is not been impactful on the Turkish state. The international coalition has not done anything strong in a position, has not taken a strong position towards Turkey. It's just watching. And when a place is occupied, it engages in negotiations to get the civilians out. More than this, it's not really happening. There's no real stance being shown. It's not having any impact. And for the visit of between Blinken and Turkey, we do not know what they will discuss. We know it will be on Syria, but what's the plan? We don't know. But I can say this, I want to say this. If there is an agreement made without our will, and if our rights are not guaranteed, are not considered, are not secured, we cannot accept this, and we will have a stance against this. And we will continue our resistance, continue our struggle. If they will discuss with us, with our will, and we are open to dialogue, we are open to solutions. However, if our rights and our will are not being taken into consideration and their decisions made like this, then we do not accept these decisions. We can shortly explain like this. And up to now, the stance of the international coalition, we cannot call it a sufficient or good stance. It's a very weak stance. The things that Foza said, we agree with. For years, we've had cooperation with the coalition, and particularly in the period of ISIS and when all of Rojava and North and East Syria was being attacked, and now we see the new threat also from ISIS. There have been much dialogue, many meetings, many discussions that were carried out. However, truly, in this period, with these recent attacks, if you look at this, there's really, we can say, a weak stance up to even no stance against this. They've just been the role of a mediator, that's it. If the aerial attacks that are occurring from Turkey, there's like our eyes being closed to this. If these are not stopped, we can say the stance is weak. It's been years we've been working together in a partnership, and for this reason, we hope that whatever meeting occurs, wherever it can occur, even if it's tomorrow, in order to protect this land, not just for one side, but for everyone, We have these expectations. And on the level of the whole world, if we look at this silence, this lack of taking a stance, it shows that there is a purposeful ignorance of the attacks that are being waged in North and East Syria.
وكيدن هندو خازن تشتكي بجن؟
جارك دنا باندكن يعني
We make another call, a call out, because in the time of Kobani, there was a strong stance from the freedom-wanting and democratic forces of the world, but truly we see that now it's weaker, and our hope, our wish is this, that there be meaningful support, that there be active support, that people show solidarity in a stronger way. Our expectations are this, and we see that actually making relations with states is not strategic. Making contacts with the people, with women, is strategic. Our fate is one. If the revolution of women in Rojava is weak, this is a loss for all women, for the all world. It's a step backwards for all women. It's a negative outcome for all women. They want to suffocate the women's revolution because they see it as a danger to them. And in order that we protect the women's revolution, because this is really important for us on the international field, we need this support, this solidarity. We can say there is a stance currently, but it needs to be stronger, this solidarity. Our struggle needs to be stronger in order that we can stop these attacks on the women's revolution, these monstrous attacks. So I want to say this, whatever the cost be, however much sacrifice is required, we're ready. We will live with dignity, or we will carry on our struggle to the end. There's no other way. This belief, we will continue our struggle. And we believe that the will of women and the will of the people will be successful.
Thank you very much. I think with that, I appreciate all of our panelists' analysis of the situation in Northern Syria, the threats to the Kurdish people, the threats to all Syrian women, and concrete actions that we as the global community can take to stand with the Kurdish people, with women in the region, and with the entire country as they move ideally towards a more pluralist, democratic, gender equal, and multi-ethnic future. I'd like to thank all of our speakers, PYD Executive Council member Foza Yusuf, YPJ Commander Rohilat Afrin, and Kongreya Star Coordination member Jiyan Hisen, as well as the hosts of this event, Kongreya Star, the Kurdish Women's Relations Office, REPAC, and the Kurdish Women's Bureau for Peace, or CENI in Germany. Thank you all so much, and I look forward to continuing this essential conversation.